What's up, plant lovers? Devin is here, and today we're going to be talking about Tradescantia, sometimes called the inch plant or the wandering dude to replace its old antiquated name. I've had a number of requests on showing how to care for these plants as well as how to propagate them. So in this video, that's what we're going to be talking about. So Tradescantia is a genus native to the Americas. There's some varieties of Tradescantia that are very winter hardy, found up in Canada up to down to zone 4. They can actually grow outside. A little bit different in their appearance, kind of more of like a grassy plant. And then there's other Tradescantia like this beautiful purple heart that are native to more tropical regions. So we're going to be focused on the tropical ones that we grow as houseplants. Now here in my garden, I grow this beautiful Tradescantia pallida, purple heart, and I also grow Tradescantia Nanouk, which is another beautiful houseplant variety. And I would definitely rank Tradescantias as one of the best beginners plants. I'd rank it next to things like pothos and snake plants as an excellent foundational houseplant that everyone should have in their collection, at least one or two of them, because they're such rapid growers. They fill out so quickly and they're such a fast plant to propagate, which means you can be taking cuttings and trading them with friends and creating new plants to give away or add to other areas of your home. And it's really one of those plants that just keeps giving and giving and giving. That's why I love them and why I have two large mother plants that I'm always taking cuttings from. When I say these are fast growing plants, I actually started this mother plant from a single 6-inch cutting that I received at a plant swap about 18 months ago. And now you can see how beautiful and full it is looking over here. And my Tradescantia Nanouk over there, I started that from a 4-inch cutting about 2 years ago, and not as fast as the purple heart, but you can see it's a pretty rapid grower as well. Now these have a very wandering kind of rambling habit, which is where it gets its name, the wandering dude, from, because they will start to kind of drape over your pot's edges. They'll start to go up and then back down. Sometimes they'll climb. You can provide them support for them to actually climb up. They have a very unique growth habit like that, and they're always kind of growing towards the sunlight. As you can tell, all this plant material is going towards the light. And that's why I love it as a hanging plant, that you can allow it to kind of overflow wherever it's growing from. But they're also great as a mixed container plant. Here you can see I have it growing with my Peru monstera. Now my Peru monstera is climbing upwards and my Tradescantia pallida is overflowing downwards. And that's just created this really nice energy from a single pot, which is cool. And then behind me, my Tradescantia Nanouk is growing with a syngonium that's climbing upwards, and the Nanouk is overflowing. So you can see I kind of like that combo of a climber with the rambler. Now, one of the unique things about Tradescantia, as they're growing, they will actually root in wherever the stems actually touch the soil, which outside it makes a wonderful ground cover if you live in an area where they can be grown outside year round. But even in your pot, you'll find that you start them in the middle, and as they're kind of rambling out, those sections that are rambling out will actually root in, and that creates a really dense growth habit. However, that does mean that it is a pretty aggressive plant, for better or worse. It also means that these are a cinch to propagate, so we'll definitely be talking about propagating them here in a little bit. Now, in terms of growing these plants, they're very easy to grow, as I was mentioning. The most important thing is that they do get ample sunlight. Here you can see I have it next to this window. This is like a southeast facing window, so it gets really great morning sunlight. And that is what allows them to have the best color and also, of course, the fastest growth. If they don't have optimal sunlight, what can often happen is they will lose a little bit of that luster. So the purple just gets a little bit more green. It loses some of that purple tone. And with the Tradescantia Nanouk, it actually loses a lot of that pink coloring as well, which is why we grow it. So we want to provide them ample sunlight. But they also like ample moisture and humidity. Now, because these plants grow so quickly, they produce roots so fast, they often will utilize water very rapidly, much more rapidly than some of the other plants that you have growing around them. So in terms of watering, I typically will water mine once every 3 or 4 days just to ensure that it doesn't get overly dry in the container. Like I'm looking right now and it definitely looks like it could use some moisture. But that being said, if you do allow it to stay a little bit dry for a couple more days than you probably should have, it's really gonna be no harm, no foul. They're very resilient plants and they really won't skip a beat. But they will have better growth if they have that even moisture all the time. Also, if they do get dry for prolonged periods of time, they can get brown edges, and that can be a little bit unsightly. You can definitely see on my Nanouk, there's lots of browning that is occurring, and that's really because it is in kind of a small pot with the Syngonium. I'm absolutely certain that the roots are totally full in this container, but I'm not really interested in changing the pot out anyway, so I kind of just deal with it and I'll remove some of the brown foliage as I see it. But that can be prevented by keeping your soil nice and evenly moist, but also by providing ample sunlight. Now, in terms of temperature, average home temperatures are absolutely fine. Nothing special about that. They don't need any sort of cold periods or warm periods to produce extra growth. I also will use just average bagged potting mix because they are such rapid, aggressive growers. You really don't need to waste money on some of the more specialty soil mix-ins like your sphagnum moss or your orchid bark or your horticultural charcoal. I also do fertilize mine about once a month. I recently put worm castings in this guy. So check, if you're unfamiliar with worm castings, it's a great fertilizer. That's kind of the direction that I'm starting to go with all of my houseplants, is using worm castings as my preferred fertilizer because it acts like a slow release fertilizer that you apply once and then it just kind of enters slowly into the soil, giving the roots nice energy over the course of a few months, rather than a water-soluble fertilizer that you use once every 2 weeks or 4 weeks, something like that. Now, Tradescantia can actually produce flowers. They're from a family that is known to produce flowers for a single day. So my Tradescantia pallida, my purple heart, does produce flowers from time to time when it's nice and bright and sunny out. Nice, cute little pink flowers. I have not got my Tradescantia Nanouk to flower, but maybe one day, we'll see. If you've been here a while, you know I do like to put certain house plants outside in the summer to really kind of invigorate the plant and give them awesome growth from the summertime exposure. However, this is a plant that you don't need to put outside ever. Leave it inside all year round and it's gonna be a-okay. All right, so now let's talk about propagating. Like I was saying, oftentimes these will get a little bit long in the tooth and that can require you to remove some of that old growth material, which sets it up for some awesome propagation opportunities. So here's a nice stem that's looking a little bit long in the tooth. You know, some of it's getting a little bit brown. So when we're taking our cuttings, I really want to get like a 6-inch cutting. That's really the best. And in that 6-inch cutting, you want to include as many of those leaf nodes as possible. As we remember, when we're propagating, it is from those leaf nodes where the new roots will actually come from. So as many leaf nodes as we can include, the better. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take like this 12-inch cutting and I'm gonna make 2 cuttings from it. All right, so I'll take it just like this and then I will cut it right in between these 2 nodes right here. And then you can see I have leaf node 1, 2, here's a 3rd one, a 4th one, that's perfect. Now what you want to do is you want to remove all of the bottom leaf material. We want to remove those bottom ones, and this is what we're going to be putting in our soil or putting in water. Okay, and then on this cutting, I'm gonna remove this leaf and this leaf, and then I have a nice, this is like a 4-inch cutting, so this is pretty much kind of like the smallest size that you want to get. So I got 2 different sizes. These will both be good. And likewise over here, I will do another cutting. And you always want to cut just in between a couple of leaf nodes because these are called the inch plant. There's typically about 1 inch in between those leaf nodes. Just kind of a general rule of thumb. So anywhere in between those leaf nodes is going to be perfect. There we go. I got this big guy. I'm going to cut him in half. And then I will go ahead and remove bottom 1, bottom 2, maybe bottom 3. Let's just remove bottom 4 leaves. Do the same with this guy. And now we have 2 cuttings of our purple one. All right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna propagate the purple guy in water and we're gonna propagate the Nanouk right into soil. So first with the purple guy, we're just gonna take him and we are going to place him in a jar of water ensuring that as many of those, we want to ensure that as many of those nodes are in the water as possible. You can see all those nodes in there. But what you also will notice is that this guy is actually sitting his leaf in a little bit of water. That is a no-no. We do not want that to happen. So we're going to remove some of that water. So what I've done is I removed some of that water, and I've also just kind of leaned him onto the other stem so that that leaf remains above the soil. If you allow the leaf to be in that water, that can cause rot, and that will definitely cause a failed propagation. So we're just going to put him over here for now. And so I ended up taking one more cutting just so we can have a nice full look in our little container. So when we're propagating these guys, we want to do it in like a 3.5 inch container at max, never any bigger than that. And so I filled it with just some average potting mix. So what I always like to do when I'm propagating, I'll give it some water first, allow it to settle. You can see all the water that came out of the bottom. Now I'll just stir it around. You want to ensure that all of your substrate soil mix is nice and moist. Okay. You can pat it down a little bit, make it nice and even. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my little chopstick, just go right down to the very bottom of your container. So you touch the bottom. I'm going to take my stem and just put it in there. And just give it a nice little pat. Now you can see I got one leaf node, one of those leaf nodes went in there, which is not great. And the third one looks like one leaf node went in there as well. Now, since on each of those 3 cuttings, only one leaf node went in, and there's like a second one that's just above the soil line, you can see when I put water in there, the soil actually went down. So what I want to do is I'm going to add some more soil, and that's going to also cover one more leaf node with soil substrate, which is what we want. We want as many leaf nodes under the soil as possible. Then we'll give it some more moisture, just to ensure that all that top new soil is nice and wet. Now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on my propagation station, which you can see right here. If you'd like to see how to make a cheap and easy propagation for increased success rates on your props, check that video out. Really easy, really fast to do. And I do find that adding that bottom heat, which is what we have under here as a heat mat, that will really create 100% success rate with your Tradescantia propagations. If your Tradescantia propagation remains wet and cold for a prolonged period of time, that can cause rot and that will lead to a failed propagation. So my recommendation is using a heat pad. However, if your home is really nice and warm, I keep mine pretty chilly, so I really don't like to risk it by just propagating it on a shelf somewhere. I always will use the heat pad. It's up to you what you want to do. You can try it without a heat pad, and I've done it, had many successes, but I've also had failures. When I use the heat pad, I only have success. So that's all I got to say about that. And we'll revisit this guy in a few weeks once we start to see some new growth emanating from those stems, which will be the signal that yes, it was successful. Now, with this guy, we have a couple options. If you do have a propagation station like this, you can absolutely just put it right on the heat pad, and that will lead to a faster success of your propagation. Or if you don't have the heat pad and you don't want to mess with it, you can really just place this in any location. It doesn't need to be in the light. It doesn't need the heat. Just let it be, and it will start to create roots over the next few weeks. So once it's created some roots, we'll revisit it, and I'll show you how to get those planted up as well. All right, I'll see you in a bit. Guys, it's been literally 2 weeks and this guy, the Nanouk, is already starting to produce new growth. That means that the propagation was a success. Really, all you have to do, you have to just look at the ends of what you propagated And if you can see any new growth that's been occurring, like right here, or you see that little baby guy just getting started right here, that's all new. That means it has rooted and it is starting to grow new growth, all right? Propagations will not grow if they haven't grown roots first. So, number one, success. Now let's take a look at our cuttings that we have in water. And it's just so wild how fast these babies will produce roots. Look at that. That's all roots grown from just being in water for 2 weeks. This guy's a little slower, but he's still got some going on as well. And just like before, we're starting with some pre-moistened potting mix. I just wetted it down. Take my little chopstick, make a hole into the middle, and then, actually this I've got to make a little bit wider. So you can fit all those nice roots inside. Making sure they're all covered over, and because these are kind of a trailing plant, as we know, I just position it so it's kind of trailing over the edge. And then I'll do the second one. And now I have a new Tradescantia purple heart. Look how easy that was. And in about 6 weeks, this guy is gonna start to grow enough that I could probably take more cuttings, pop those up, get another plant going. These guys just keep on giving and giving and giving. You could start your own nursery growing Tradescantia alone just by how easy these are to propagate. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video all about Tradescantia grown as a houseplant. If you do still have any further questions, make sure to leave your questions and or comments below. I always do my best to answer each and every one of them. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We're a growing plant community trying to get bigger and bigger so that we can spread Mother Nature and Mother Nature's love to all that want it. And thank you guys for joining me here on Plant Vibrations. I will catch you soon. Ciao.